The worst safety recalls for each major car brand. Interested in the bad parts of the past of cars? We show you the most shocking safety recalls from all the big car brands in this video. What were the major problems that made these companies have to take drastic steps, like airbags that went off or brakes that wouldn't work? Stay tuned as we get into the specifics and answer the important question. Which car brands had the worst safety recalls ever? Bentley Arnage wheel nuts. It's likely that most of the recalls on this list relate to reasonably priced cars that were manufactured in incredibly large quantities. But if you were lucky enough to be able to purchase a delicious Bentley Arnage in 2007, you undoubtedly slept better at night knowing that there would be no bothersome recalls. False. Regretfully, manufacturing flaws can still occur in extremely expensive luxury cars. Far from it. Regarding the Arnage R, Bentley learned that several of the cars had the incorrect wheel nuts when they were taken off the assembly line. Why is this such a big deal? The bad news is that these missized wheel nuts may cause the wheels to come off. Dieselgate. Volkswagen has had recalls in the past despite popular belief to the contrary. Few things damage the German brand's reputation more severely than Dieselgate, the massive untruth. To put it briefly, VW did not merely fake good emissions data in the hopes that no one would notice. Actually, it goes far worse than that. Diesel cars made by Volkswagen and some Audi models were equipped with defeat devices that were hidden and sensed when the vehicle was being tested for pollutants. As a result, the device would automatically cut emissions. The majority of the autos were covered by a straightforward software update when the recall was first announced in 2016. On the other hand, about 1 million vehicles need mechanical assistance. All in all, VW entered a guilty plea to criminal charges and was forced to pay $40 billion in damages. Oliver Schmidt, a former VW engineer, was ultimately sentenced to 7 years in jail for his involvement in the scam. BMW X7 leaky cup holder. Just when I thought I had seen it all, a class action lawsuit involving BMW made headlines at the end of last year. California-based Brightkick Consulting Incorporated is suing the German automaker, alleging that spilled liquids in the cup holders of the most recent X7 SUV can seep onto the airbag control electronics, potentially causing a false deployment in addition to damage to the airbags. Although the case is still pending, BMW's situation is not looking good, particularly in light of its recent heated seat subscription service debacle. If you're operating a 2020 X7, you may wish to temporarily refrain from using the cup holders. Ford Pinto fuel filler neck. I can speak from my experience when I say that getting rear-ended is not a good experience. You probably don't need me to tell you that. But consider this. If you'd have been the owner of a Ford Pinto in the late 1970s, and such an impact had caused your car to catch fire and explode, that would have been you. The fuel filler neck on the Pinto had a catastrophic defect that could split in a rear-end collision and puncture the fuel tank. After that, gasoline would spray into the passenger compartment, where it would ignite. Ford identified the issue early on and calculated that fixing it would cost $11 per vehicle. A 1973 document that was leaked disclosed the annual death toll as well as the brand's choice to overlook the problem since fixing it would be too costly. Ford was compelled to recall 1.5 million Pintos in order to preserve face, though following the deaths of 27 people. The anticipated cost of fixing the property was $20 million. Toyota sticky gas pedal. Imagine yourself traveling down the road when your accelerator pedal becomes completely jammed. Not good news. That may have been you if you drove any of the following specific Toyota models between 2009 and 2010. The initial recall was announced on November 2, 2009, with the warning that floor mats fitted improperly could trap the throttle pedal. Following Toyota's discovery of a potential mechanical problem that would have led to the accelerator becoming stuck, the second recall was initiated in January 2010. Weeks were spent without sales of the impacted vehicles while new parts were being manufactured. Chevrolet Corvair. The problems with the Chevrolet Corvair would make a lengthy article, but because we only have a few paragraphs, let's focus on the highlights or lowlights, if you will. With the exception of the Porsche 911, most vehicles from the 1960s were quite lengthy, had a front-mounted engine and lacked much power. Still, the Corvair is the only American vehicle with an air-cooled engine located at the back. It turned out to be considerably less agile than Porsche's 911, which was quite expected. Ralph Nader, one of the pioneers of automotive safety advocacy, even went so far as to refer to it as the only vehicle in which a one-car accident might occur. The rear hack shafts, which connected to the differential located on the frame, gave it lethal handling characteristics. Crucially, while the rear suspension was under load, the inboard part of the hack shaft, which is closest to the differential, could bend, enabling the rear wheels to articulate at sharp angles. This resulted in a rapid and unexpected loss of traction, since it drastically decreased the amount of rubber that could come into contact with the road. There was a severe possibility that one of the wheels might tuck beneath the car and cause a rollover. Ferrari brake fluid leak. Recalls can occasionally take a while to appear. As an example, Ferrari was recently in the news due to a defective brake fluid reservoir that affected 23,555 cars, including the F60 and LaFerrari, from the 2005 model year to as late as 2022. The problem? An improperly venting brake fluid reservoir cover caused the problem. This might have created a vacuum, which would have increased the likelihood of a leak. If enough fluid came out, the impacted vehicles might not have been able to brake at all, which would have been disastrous. Fortunately, the solution is as simple as installing a new cap with proper venting and updating the software to warn the user when the fluid level is dangerously low. General Motors engine mounts. Since engine mounts keep the engine mounted to the automobile, it doesn't take an auto fanatic to understand the significance of engine mounts. Perhaps that was something that should have been brought up with General Motors, which encountered some issues with defective engine mounts in the late 1960s. Why is this such a big deal? It is all related to the fact that the accelerator, pedal, and engine in older cars were connected via cable. The motor's opposite side rose when one of the engine mounts cracked. The throttle cable was pulled, leaving it locked open. The problem was exacerbated by the natural shock, which increased the forward motion. The upward motion also caused the brake booster to come loose, which increased the effort required to stop the car using the brake pedal. Yes, not very good. GM vehemently opposed the recall, with Edward Cole, the company president at the time, arguing that it was no more significant than a flat tire. Good old Eddie was going to be surprised, though, since the US government stepped in and forced General Motors to spend millions fixing the 7 million impacted automobiles. Suzuki Celerio retracting brake pedal. After a disastrous brake recall involving the Celerio hatchback, Suzuki found itself in hot water in 2015. In the United Kingdom, an automotive writer was testing the brakes at 80 miles per hour when the brake pedal went to the floor and the vehicle refused to even slightly decelerate. The problem? Yes, we see the irony. Suzuki had added a safety feature that would retract the brake pedal in the event of a collision. Although that seems like the opposite of what you would want in an emergency, such a system is actually necessary in many parts of the world. Lower extremity injuries from car crashes are often caused by the brake pedal, particularly when the firewall starts to deform. The brake pedal that retracts was designed to completely mitigate this. Suzuki discovered that forceful braking action could break the little metal component that held the brake pedal in place. All was well after the remedy consisted of replacing the retraction system link with one that was much stronger. Takata airbags. Airbags are an incredible innovation. One of the most significant developments in car safety since the seatbelt was introduced is the invention of John Hetrick. Or do they not? Takata is a well-known Japanese manufacturer of airbags and seatbelts, or at least it was. That is, until a well-publicized controversy in 2013 exposed the possibility that the airbags may burst, piercing car occupants with metal fragments. The New York Times claims that Takata and Honda were aware of the fundamental flaw, which had the potential to kill 6 people, but chose not to notify the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The U.S. justice system penalized Honda $70 million and Takata $14,000 for each day that they did not collaborate once both parties were discovered. It's among the most disastrous recalls for any company in terms of numbers. About 42 million automobiles were still unaccounted for out of the 65 to 70 million recalled vehicles by the end of 2019. If you found this deep dive into automotive safety recalls eye-opening and want to stay informed about the latest car news and reviews, be sure to subscribe to our channel.